Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I use she, her pronouns, and random fact, I used to be a veterinary technician. That's actually what I went to college for. All of my life, I really was interested in becoming a veterinarian, and that translated into deciding to become a veterinary technician. And so that's what I did before I became a yoga teacher. I'm also a mom of three, a yoga teacher now, podcaster, and founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. This podcast was created for you so that each and every week you are connected to the information and inspiration that will support you as you build your unique yoga business. No matter where you started, I'm super curious to hear, what did you think that you wanted to grow up and do? And maybe you're even asking yourself that question now. Maybe that's why you're having a listen today. You know, a few years ago, or even, 18 months ago, online yoga teachers were pretty rare and unique. But because of the pandemic and everyone needing to move yoga online, it now feels like being an online yoga teacher is very common. And one of the most common questions I hear from yoga teachers is, how can I stand out now? Yoga teachers are feeling like there are a lot of us online, and we really want to show up in a way that helps us to stand out. And that's why I'm so excited that you get to hear this week's podcast with Danbee Shin, who shares her tips on how to make our yoga website stand out. She talks about the common mistakes people made, and she has some really great ideas and action steps that you can implement right away to make your website stand out. This is a super useful episode, Connected Yoga Teachers. If you have been wanting to freshen up your website, add something new, or you're just really feeling like you want to get your message across and get people signing up for your offerings, I found so much comfort in listening to this interview as I listened back to it. So this was actually a live interview that Danbee and I did inside of the Connected Yoga Teacher group, and it went out on YouTube. If you want to see the full thing, you can. Most of it is here. Even some shout outs to some people who were there live and asked great questions. They're here for you. We've just edited the audio and made it so that you can listen on the go. And this also goes along really nicely with last week's episode with Sarah, where Sarah talked about how to craft a great sales page. So if you're needing a bit of inspiration for your website, I feel like these are two episodes to go to for sure. And before we get into today's amazing episode with Danbee, I want to share with you a couple of shout outs of thanks. First of all, to Aoife for leaving a voicemail with a review of the podcast. Have a listen to that here.
Hi, Shannon and everyone at theconnectedyogateacher.com. My name is Aoife. I am a qualified yin yoga and meditation teacher as of 2 years ago. However, I only came across your podcast and website about 5 days ago. Since then, however, I have been listening and reading as much as possible. And I just want to say a huge thank you, because all of the material that I have either listened to or read or been exposed to via your work has proven so uplifting and helpful and inspiring. And yeah, it's really given me that little kick and that boost to really continue to pursue my career as a yoga teacher. It is the best job ever. And I want to make sure that I can do it to offer help to others, to serve the community, and to be able to live off of it as well. And yeah, I'm super pumped. So thank you so much to everyone involved. All the best. Bye.
Aoife, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Connected Yoga Teachers, if you're wondering how you can do the same, we love to share your voices on the podcast. There's a voicemail button on our website. You can press the button and leave us a message, and it will get sent right over to us. Aoife, I wanted to say that I loved so many parts about this message. One, that you called this a career, and you said that you really want to work on it so that you can help people. And you also want to build this career that pays you. And I'm so excited that you're here. And reach out if you have more questions that aren't being answered by previous podcast episodes. And that goes for all of you. Really, the best people to tell us what content you need next is the people who listen to the podcast each and every week. So whether you're brand new here and you have a question, bring it on over to our Facebook group if you want the whole collective group of connected yoga teachers to answer there, or ask us in a voice message and we will see what we can do. We can either find you a previous episode or possibly create a new one. Now, I think the odds are pretty slim that we got 2 testimonials from 2 different Aoifes. So I'm guessing this is the same Aoife, but over on our Facebook page. And so I wanted to read that out to you as well. Aoife says, I love this podcast. I've also joined the Facebook group, but have yet to make the time to properly get in there and connect, as I have such a long and inspiring to-do list. To all I'm learning and being exposed to thanks to the wonderful podcast. I feel that the variety of guests and topics discussed and the very handy resources recommended or mentioned are invaluable, and I'm so grateful that I finally came across it. Big thanks to Shannon and everyone at the Connected Yoga Teacher for all their hard work. Thank you so much, Aoife. My guess is that you left 2 reviews, and that is allowed, and that is why I wanted to give a shout out to both of them. And Connected Yoga Teachers, this is a reminder that if you are loving the podcast, tell us in a review. You can leave a review right from Apple or on our Facebook page, or like Aoife did, also in a voice message. I also want to give a huge shout out of thank you to the amazing team over at Schedulicity. I had a question for them last week about a feature that I was seeing and wondering about, a new feature, and they got back to me so quickly. And that is the one main reason why I started using this company in 2011. I started using the Schedulicity software. So it's been 10 years now. I'm still using it. And so let's hear our hot tip of the week from the team over there.
Hey there, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Blake with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. If you don't have a website, your Schedulicity account includes a business listing page where you can show off your services, classes, workshops, and business information. You can choose when you're ready to make your business listing public, so it will stay hidden while you're still getting set up. You can control whether or not your clients are allowed to book their appointments online, and you'll appear in Schedulicity's search results when your listing is public. If you already have your own website, you can copy and paste the code for our booking widget and allow your clients to book online without navigating away from your page. Having a strong internet presence helps take your business to the next level.
Okay, Connected Yoga Teachers, let's talk about websites. And please remember before we dive in that we are going to make small steps and really think about our website for a moment here with Danbee. Danbee Shin is a web designer and copywriter who focuses on helping online coaches and teachers get more clients with their websites so they can empower more people all around the world while doing the work they love. Through simple, minimalist websites, Danbee produces high-converting web design that helps her clients grow their email lists, book out their calendars, sign new clients on, and hit their income goals. Danbee has so much great information for us in this interview, so let's dive right in. Welcome, Danbee. It's great to have you here on the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Me too. I'm excited that we get to dive into this conversation about how to stand out. Because as I was telling you before we hit record, I feel like online yoga teachers used to be rare. And now online yoga teachers are very common. And so yoga teachers have been saying, how can I now stand out online? And before we even dig into that, tell our listeners, what is the work that you do? Who do you do it for? And how did you get started with this?
Yeah, I'm a web designer and copywriter. So I work mostly with online coaches, also teachers and consultants. And I'm so excited to be talking to you about running a yoga teaching business online because all of my clients work with clients either one-on-one or in small groups online. Like that is what I help them with. I help them sell those programs. I help them like take care of their clients who they work with remotely. Also am a business mentor to other web designers, and I help them get their first few high-ticket clients. And I hear you when you say there are a lot of people running their businesses online now, which is why there's also a big population of web designers out there trying to support all these people.
Did things really pick up with your business then and get really busy when the pandemic hit?
There was some of that. A lot of clients who were running maybe just a part of their business online obviously went full time online. A lot of clients also just started their businesses. A lot of people had existing businesses that they had. For example, I work with a lot of health coaches, and they would, for example, have been seeing clients face-to-face in their offices, at home, in clinics, and they had to move all of that online. So all of a sudden, everyone kind of needed websites.
So what do you think is the first thing that we need to be aware of when we want to stand out online?
So one of the biggest mistakes I see my clients make before we start working together is they don't talk enough about themselves. And it's often because they don't want to get super personal because they think they need to be professional. And they're also worried about other people looking at them and thinking, oh, like they're always promoting themselves. They're talking about themselves and always going, they feel like they're going like me when they tell stories about themselves. So I feel like one of the most powerful things you can do is tell stories about yourself and about your yoga teaching business. And the reason that this works so well is stories are so much stickier than any other kind of information. We all know like why yoga is so awesome. I've been doing yoga since I was a teenager, and I know, I've heard so many people talk about how it's great for relieving stress. It's great for like mobility. The meditation aspect really helps with anxiety. But like these things kind of like wash over a lot of people. We hear a lot of this. Instead, like, what if you talked about your experience as a yoga teacher, like your personal experience with some of these things, with some of these benefits? What if you talk about like some of the experiences that your clients, your students who come to your classes have had in their lives? I feel like instinctively, that other people are going to remember those better.
I love that so much. If we talk about, let's say, oh gosh, my kids were running around and everything was crazy. I'm trying to do online schooling, and then I used this piece of my yoga to kind of center and bring me back. That's a great idea to use stories. I think you're right. I think sometimes we don't want to make it all about ourselves, or we want to keep our personal life personal, or we just want to market the thing, just tell people about the yoga class. Are there any examples that you have where you think, okay, a story could land this? It doesn't have to necessarily be about a yoga teacher, but can you think of one in another business?
Yeah, of course. I have a couple of examples I can share. So I have, because it's often easy to follow, like a process to come up with a story. I ended up, after working with a lot of clients about like, okay, I go like, okay, we need to tell stories about you. And that's just not a really helpful way to get started. What I have found is, so the solution that I've landed on is something I call the brand story, because it's all about your brand. And it's about the turning point in your business that kind of explains why you work with the people you work with, like the people you help. I'm sure even if you have like a big audience of yoga teachers, there are different yoga teachers who work with different kinds of students. And for every website project where I design, where I write the copy, I spend a lot of time interviewing my client about, like, basically to help them craft their brand story. And the reason it works is because we're talking about why you work with the people you work with. The focus is on the people that you're helping and less on you. And I find that it's a lot easier to get that story out of them. It's not talking like directly about your, like, how awesome your expertise is, like how awesome your qualifications are. It's more about, like, how special the people you help are. So I feel like usually there are 4 big steps to this. And I start by asking who your favorite clients are. And then we talk about a personal experience that you have had that connects you to those specific people. And then I get them to think about, okay, like, this experience that you have conjured up in your head, in your mind, what did that experience like make you realize? It can be a really tiny moment, but was there like a light bulb moment? And then what kind of like an opinion or like a new point of view did that lead to? So that's kind of like the general arc of the story that I'm going for. And I'll tell you mine because I think it's really like helpful to see a real example. So when I was 21, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome and prediabetes. And I didn't know like what I was doing wrong. My doctors were really awful, and their strategy to get me healthy was to scare me with threats of getting cervical cancer if I didn't, like lose a ton of weight immediately, to put me on meds. And I spent a good few years trying to figure it out on my own. But then my turning point was when I found health coaches, and they really helped me understand what was going on, like in with my hormones, and like how insulin works and how my glucose intolerance works. And biggest like symptom I had was I just never got my period. And by working with health coaches, I got my period back without meds, without like going on the pill. And the realization for me there was like, most doctors don't know how to help women specifically with these endocrine disorders. Like their solution is generally to put you on meds, and to put you on the pill. And that's kind of like considered the solution. And the opinion that I walked away with, kind of the new point of view I walked away with was, oh, like health coaches are awesome. I didn't even know what they were before this experience. They know what they're doing. They have so much experience working in this way in their area of expertise, and more people should know about health coaches. And for me to be able to talk about this experience and how I got to know the work that health coaches do, helped me really attract more health coaches for my web design business.
That's a really great example of the story. So it's not like then you chose to work with health coaches because you are one. You chose to because you found such value in it in your own personal life.
Yeah, I had I think it's still like a really fortunate like experience. I wish I didn't have the health issues to begin with, but
Right.
as long as that was the starting point, I had the great fortune to work with health coaches, and that really connected me to the kind of people that I wanted to work with, that I was already helping with my web design business.
Oh, this is amazing. There's a real tie over here. We're having a guest speaker come in to Pelvic Health Professionals to talk about PCOS, and I feel like I barely know anything about it. So I'm excited to learn more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for that conversation.
Connected yoga teachers, I wanted to pop in here for a moment with a bit of an update. Since this episode was recorded over in our Pelvic Health Professionals membership, that's where yoga teachers, PTs, and any other people who work one-on-one or with groups of people who have a pelvis can come gather and learn more about pelvic health conditions and how we can help those people. Over there, Yusra came in to talk with us about PCOS, and I learned so much in that call. If you are working with yoga students and you want to learn more about PCOS, movement, and nutrition and how to help those individuals, you can join Pelvic Health Professionals. Head on over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com and the join button is right there. Okay, let's get back to our interview. So we figure out who our favorite people are. We see if there's a light bulb moment. And I feel like I missed a couple things in there of what that part
I mean,
is.
it's a loose framework. So whatever experience you have had with that ties you to that group of people will work. And I love it because every story will be different. And that's like the trick. Every story is different. So people are going to remember you when they hear that story. I was the web designer who worked with health coaches. And like health coaches remember the PCOS. No one else knows what PCOS is.
Right.
And that worked just fine for me. I have another example that might help show like another kind of experience to show that it can just be anything that you have personally experienced in your life. One of my favorite clients, she's a health coach, and her story is all about how she had her teenage stepchildren come live with her full time unexpectedly. So for the kids, they changed their lifestyle overnight to be blended into this family. And they ended up changing how they slept, how they moved, how they ate. And within 1 month, my client saw how they each lost like 15 pounds. They stopped being sick all the time. And she had been living this lifestyle just because that was how she was living. But as a health coach, she was kind of seeing this happen like right in front of her eyes. And for her, that was a new realization of like how every little decision, choice you make has such a big impact on your life. And I think she took a lot of that for granted because she was already living this amazing lifestyle. And that helped her focus on helping her clients, her health coaching clients, make changes in their environment in a way that felt really natural, like not forced, not like super hard, making small changes where it made sense. And that's what connects her to the people that she works with. They're not, necessarily teenagers, although she works with moms and families. But for her, it's more like everyday people who don't want to make these massive dramatic changes. It still works when you're really deliberate with these small lifestyle changes. And for her, that was very ironically like a light bulb moment.
Right. Oh, that makes so much sense. So are there some questions then that our yoga teachers who are listening could ask themselves to kind of pull that story out in their own life and their own business?
I would start with like, who are your favorite students who come to all of your classes, who you actually have conversations with? And I would try to picture like, if not one person, like 1 to 3 people, like specific people that you notice. You don't have to know their name, but you probably do, I think. And I would think about like, what experience have you had that makes you feel like you have that connection with those people? Like, what has happened in your life that makes you feel like, oh, these are my favorite people? And I would try to think about like, okay, so because of this experience that I have in mind, and it might not be that specific student, right? It's just that experience that came up for me, that connects me to these people. Why is that experience? Why does that stand out for me? Like, what was there a new kind of realization? Did you change opinions in some way? Did it give you like a new point of view on something? And that's kind of what I would craft your story around.
Oh my goodness, I love this so much. Robin saying, you expressed exactly how I've been feeling for a long time, feeling social media has become nothing more than self-promotion of an image or brand that's so fake. I get sick to my stomach just thinking about having to come up with social media propaganda, for lack of a better word. It just all feels very inauthentic. What will I tell people? Pick me, the 57-year-old frumpy-looking grandma, over any other yoga teacher. This is Robin. I know Robin, and the last thing she is a frumpy grandma. Like, I've seen videos and photos and heard Robin's voice, and so that's false. The frumpy. She's a grandma, but not frumpy. So what do you say to that, Danbee?
Yeah,
About
I would ask Robin, who are your favorite people who show up for your classes, and why are they your favorite? Can you think of an experience in your life that ties you to them? Like, how do you relate to them? If you're here, like, I would love to hear that story and see if we can find it, like find a story arc for you.
That'd be great. And Cindy is asking, do you recommend written stories or video? What a great
The
question,
great thing
Cindy.
about this, yeah, I love this question. The great thing about this is you can do whatever you want. You can do all of the things. So generally, if I'm building a website for my clients, I will write this as a story that goes on their about page, like on their website. But then we take that, and if they're on social media, this is something that they can do a live video on. This is something they can write a post on. Robin talked about like the social media propaganda. It doesn't have to feel that icky. It can just be about a story that you have, and the story is just, and you can have like the long version, you can have a super short version, depending on where you're using it. And when you feel like you're talking about it way too much, that's probably the right amount of amount to be talking about, like, out there, because that's when people will start remembering that story about you.
Oh, this is really good. So we don't just tell the story once and then that's over. We keep telling that story, probably in different ways. And
Right.
are there some other ways that we can stand out? I mean, I talk to our connected yoga teachers about really finding your specialty or that niche, and having that highlighted on your website somehow. Do you have any tips for that as well?
Yeah, I love that you're all about niching. I'm a big fan of niching myself. And I like to think about it as like a specific problem you're solving. So Shannon, I know like pelvic health is your thing. And it could be like any kind of people who have this problem, right? You're not targeting like a demographic, like this is something they struggle with and you help them with it. And this is how I recommend that my clients think about their niche, to think about the problem they're solving for their people. And this is where I think stories about your clients, your students come in. I bet you have a lot of stories about people who worked with you, who changed something in their lives and saw results in their everyday lives. Like, those are the specific stories. Again, like, stories are so much stickier than like, this is good for you because like, here are the stats, here are, here's the data, here's what the research says. Stories are so much stickier. So if you tell those personal stories with your students' permission, I think that's a really great way to stand out.
Right. Oh, you're so right on this. I'm thinking of when I talk about certain, even when I'm teaching yoga teachers, the pelvic health side of things, the stories really root it and make that stick, especially when people are dealing with pelvic health problems for a long time. And then they're like, oh my gosh, it's this simple, like, go see my pelvic health PT and do these things. And I don't have to deal with it anymore. This is amazing to think of these problems. Here's one thing with the problem piece of things. Yoga teachers often don't want to focus on the problem. Like, let's say some of our yoga teachers are dealing with people who are dealing with high levels of stress, anxiety, pain. And I think that they're hesitant to put those as the words on their website. What would you say to that?
I would say talk to your students. Again, usually your favorite students who show up for all of your programs. And I'm sure you do this like in your day-to-day anyway. Just have conversations with them and see what language they're using. Are they saying, I feel anxious and that's why I take yoga classes? Maybe like I'm feeling like I've gone to a lot of yoga classes. I feel like I never say it in those words as a student. So when we say problem, it sounds really dramatic, but it doesn't have to be that, right? Your students might be saying, I just need like 1 hour in my week, in my day. That's just for me. That's just one example. I just want to like feel a certain way. And this is something that you'll be able to find out only by talking to them. Like you can't guess this. I can't tell you because I am not your favorite student. And I would try to look at it from that perspective. What words are your students using when they talk about why they're here to learn from you?
So when you work with someone on their website, do you get them to interview their favorite people, or do you do that?
So often, because my clients have done so much like one-on-one work, they know a lot about like the language that their clients are using. But I have also had a lot of fun interviewing their clients on their behalf. Because it's often, I think, also easier with that step removed. Like it's less personal. I'm just, the website expert talking about marketing stuff and doing research, and it takes the coach out of the equation, which has sometimes been helpful. Also, what I encourage people to do is look at your testimonials. Is it common practice to get feedback or like student comments about classes afterwards for yoga teachers?
I don't know if it's that common, but we do encourage our yoga teachers get those testimonials where you can. Even if they post about it on Facebook somewhere and say, "Oh my gosh," and tag the teacher, but also
Yeah,
to go out and seek that testimonial is good too.
because that's like a gold mine for the language that people use. So especially because my clients have worked with people for a number of years, they'll have like screenshots of Facebook posts, like you said, like Facebook comments. And those are the best because they're using their own words to express how excited they are. And they might even say, I was struggling with this for the longest time. And actually, like, this is what I got out of this experience. And I would just, even if they're old, sometimes my clients say like, yeah, but that was for like a different program. My program has changed since I did that like 5 years ago. Like it doesn't really matter because unless the people you work with have changed dramatically, like that's still really valuable to revisit.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. I think this is Robin saying, yes, I connect with people who are wanting to learn to teach and people who want to live their healthiest pain-free life. Also, people who are recovering from injury or surgery. I've had 13 surgeries, and yoga was a big part of my recovery. I think that sounds like a huge story. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that it can feel, again, like very narcissistic to be like, oh, I had all these injuries, I had all these surgeries, and look, yoga fixed me. It's not that, right? It's from the energy of, I understand what my students are going through because I myself have gone through this. I know how hard it is to recover from surgeries, from injuries, and how yoga can be a big part of that. And I would talk about, I'm sure, I've only had a couple of surgeries and they were like almost life-changing, I would say, without being melodramatic. Like it's a big part of your experience. And I'm sure you walked away with a new realization, a new thought, a new point of view on whether it's about living with pain or whether it's about recovery, whether it's about how your body, like how much your body is capable of. Those are just like ideas to like get your wheels moving just based on my personal experience. What's awesome is yours probably was different. And I'd kind of go from there. Go from there. Go with what you walked away from that experience with, and how does that connect you back to and bring it back to the people you're helping.
Right. And so do we do this on our homepage? Is it on every page of our website? Where is it on our website?
So on your homepage, I would make that a very light version, because the homepage is, usually the first page on the website that that the reader interacts with you. So on the homepage, you want to keep it pretty light. Say I help this kind of people with these kind of issues. I know about this. I get this because very high level, because of my own experience with injuries and surgeries, of recovery. And then on your about page is where you would have the full story, because then people have taken the time to choose to click on the button that says learn more about me, to read and I say the an ideal flow for an about page is to talk about, again, your niche, the problem you're solving, the people you're helping, talk about how you help them. And then towards, I'd say the bottom half of the page is your story. Yes, you're the expert in this area. Why? Why does this matter to you? Why do you care about this? And what's your story?
Right. Okay, this is really important that the About Me section is still about that problem at the top.
Yes, it's about them.
Yeah. Another thing that I know I've done on my website, it might even still be there, maybe I removed it, was I used to think, well, if I've done all of this continuing education as a yoga teacher, I should list all of my certificates.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it depends on your people. Do they care about that? I'm guessing in the spectrum of people who take yoga classes, there's a whole spectrum of people who really want to see your certification to people who just really don't care. So if you have a feel for that, I would go with whatever they want to see. With a very specialized area like yoga teaching, I think it makes sense towards the bottom of the page. So after this is your why, your brand story, a little bit about, I also talk about your values, what's important to you. And I would say after that's a good place to be these are my certifications. This is I think people just assume that you have the expertise required if you're a yoga teacher and you're teaching, but
Right.
It's okay to have a section where you explicitly call out, this is why I'm the expert, and to kind of provide that extra layer of authority in your field. And then I like sandwiching that with fun facts about you to keep it interesting and light.
Right.
Talk about your pets, talk about your kids, talk about where you live in the world, and then bring it back to what do you want them to do next. So you've read about all the things that you're an expert in, why you're an expert, a little more about you and why, what the qualifications you have, but then remember to wrap up with what should they do next on this page.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can think of that really helps the people that you're working with to stand out?
To include pictures of themselves.
Oh, I love
this
that you're
is
saying
another
this.
conversation I have over and over again.
Yeah, tell us why that's so important, because people want to get a stock photo of someone else and stick it on their
doing
website.
Yoga. Yeah, because people work with people, right? People want to, every single yoga class I have ever gone to, I cared about who the teacher was. And if I didn't like them, I never went back to their class. And if I liked them, I did acrobats with my schedule to get their classes. And especially online, you're not getting that face-to-face connection with the people you work with. So your picture stands in for your actual person. So let's talk about your website. This is a conversation you're having, but you don't get to have it face to face. So you need a picture of you to stand in for you. So it's kind of our brains take shortcuts, right? That's why stories are also stickier than data. Our brains are just going to say, oh yeah, picture of Shannon. I'm talking to Shannon. I'm reading words. These are Shannon's words. Those are shortcuts our brains make. And if we can't see a picture of you, I don't know, like it's so easy to forget people when you don't know what they look like.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I go to some Instagram accounts and I really like it when people have photos of themselves on their Instagram, but I feel the hesitation of like, why do I need a picture of me and then saying this thing? I get it. Yeah.
Because again, I know the big stumbling block is like, oh, I don't want to seem like it's me. Like, oh, another picture of me, like everywhere. Because I make my clients put a picture of themselves at least one time on every single web page. Because sometimes people only look at one page on your website and they should see who you are.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great point. So every single page. I wonder if those who are here listening live or listening to the replay, do you have your picture on every single web page? I don't. So there's a little like, that's our homework, I feel like.
Yeah. Even if it's the one picture, it's better to have the same picture on every single page than no picture.
Yeah. I like, this is a comment that someone left. Thank you. Paradigm shifts, whether in our bodies or our minds, are key to finding the path to sharing successfully. This is really nice.
Yeah, that's in such a more poetic way than I've been talking about it. I love it. Yes. I really do think these are stories that stick.
Yeah. Here's someone else saying, I have a link at the bottom of my About page that says, click here if you'd like to see what certifications I've taken. So that doesn't fill up the page, but it's an option. That's a great idea as well. Does anyone else who's here live have questions for Danbee about your own website? It could be any questions at all. This is what you do all day long.
Day in, day out.
Can you tell us, before people maybe pop something into the comments here, what about updating our website? Like, I feel it with my website. I know I work with yoga teachers all the time that say, oh my gosh, I need to update my website. Do you have any tips around that?
Yeah, so once your website is out there, I think once every 3 to 4 months is like a good cadence to just go in and read over your pages. You don't have to do anything. You just have to remind yourself what's on your website, because that's what people are seeing. I'm not a big fan of like big updates, like to go in, every few months and do a big overhaul, because that often feels like too much. And when things feel like it's too much, it doesn't get done. I'm more of a fan of, every 3 to 4 months, go in there and like, maybe you heard a client say something that really stuck with you, like a phrase they used to describe themselves. And you're like, oh, I'm going to use that in like this little sentence. And maybe that's the only change you make. I feel like unless you have a new offer, like a completely new offer that you're like a new class or a new kind of a program, your website is going to be okay. Like you don't have to check in like super often. And I think it makes a really big difference for you to just read over what you've got there every 3 to 4 months and just like make little super casual changes here and there. Like it might just be, you see a paragraph and you're like, oh, I think that's going to look better if I just do bullet points. And that might just be the only change you make.
Would you suggest that our yoga teachers look at other websites to get inspiration, or step away from websites and like have a piece of paper or something in front of them?
Yeah, I'm not a really big fan of like looking to other websites for inspiration for your own. It just it gets too much. Like there are too many websites out there. There are going to be so many ideas. And one of my biggest pet peeves in web design is crafting a certain part of the website just for the sake of like a design element. And that's what often ends up happening when you see another website and you're like, oh, that looks really pretty. I want that on my website. And that might not work with the content, like the copy that you have written for yourself, the message that you have crafted for your audience. And that's the other thing. The copy is the other thing. Like when you start reading other people's copy, wow, it is difficult to write like your own, from your own voice, because now you have like everyone else's voice in your head. So those are the reasons I don't like looking at other websites. And yeah, that's why what you mentioned, Shannon, about like walking away from your website for a while, that's why I say don't look at it for 3 to 4 months. Like, it's fine. It's gonna be doing its thing. And often it's hard to gauge how well your website is working if you keep making changes to it all of the time. So maybe it's a bit ironic because I'm a web designer, but my approach is very like, let it be. You don't have to spend a ton of time on your website. And also, like, remember, it's just one part of your marketing. Like, it's a tool. It's there to tell people about you, about who you help, about why you help them, and how. As long as that's set, like, it can sit there and do its work.
That's amazing. Oh, I like this a lot, that if we look at other websites, it just gets confusing. That's something I've done over the years. And I know that it doesn't feel great because you're like, I want it to look like that.
Comparing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, yeah. It's really easy to go down into that comparison trap then right away. Okay. So we'll take some space away. Do you have any tips around the copy, like the words that we put on our website, in terms of sitting kind of at this blank page?
Don't write from scratch. That's my biggest tip. So I write all the copy for all of my website clients. I never start from scratch. I use a template that I kind of put together because I know that there is like a best practice when it comes to what has to go on each page of the website. And there's so many talented copywriters out there who offer like their frameworks, their templates. And I think some of them are so like well priced. Like, it's such a, sometimes I feel like there's such a steal. Like, don't start from scratch. If you have budget to like invest in those kind of templates, even if you don't work with a copywriter, I really recommend looking at some templates that are out there that are specifically designed to help you write this copy.
Do you have templates that you
I do
provide?
not. I'm working on templates.
Let us know when you get some for yoga teachers.
I will do. Thank you. Thank you so much for asking. I'm realizing that this is a really helpful starting point for a lot of people, because I never write from scratch, so why should you? The other thing I have for you is read your copy out loud, even if it's just to yourself, and make sure that you're not saying anything in any, like, there are no phrases or words that you would never say in real life.
Right. I do this to my family. They really appreciate it when they just walk in the room. And I'm like, I do it with my emails a lot.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because the experience the reader should have is like they're talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if everyone else wants to join me just talking out loud in your house, I live with a writer, and Sean's always talking to himself as well because he's reading it out loud.
Your partner's called Sean?
Yes.
So is mine.
Oh, that's really cool. How can people work with you further? Where should they find you?
I have a free resource, which I think is a great place to start if you're putting your own website together, and if you're crafting your brand stories. It's called the Homepage Checklist, and it has the 5 questions that your homepage should answer if you want people to stick around. And you can find that at danbeeshin.com/checklist. It's not a template, but it'll give you, it'll let you go through the questions and just make sure that you've covered all the points you need to cover on your homepage. And this is really important if you're writing stories about yourself on your About page, because usually people will find your website through the homepage, and then they'll move on to other pages. And the About page is, from what I have seen with a lot of client websites, the second most visited webpage on people's websites. And a lot of people go from the homepage to the about page. And I think this will be especially true for yoga teachers who do a lot of, their personal brands. People want to know about you.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so true. Okay, so our homework is the checklist and get our picture on every website page. Okay, I'm in there with all of you as well. And nowadays, it's not easy to get a photo shoot, but I don't think it matters. I don't think anyone's looking. No. Do you want to talk about photos for a moment?
Yeah, one of my favorite pieces of advice to give out to my clients is get your kid. I don't care how old they are. If they're older than like 4, they can handle an iPhone. Get your neighbor, get your partner, get someone to just take your phone and go outside, because the light is always better outside. Just get a few pictures taken. You'll get at least one. You'll probably get more. You'll get at least one. That is like more than good enough quality to go on your website.
Right. Okay, this is really good. Thank you so much for your time today. It was so great to connect with you. I would also suggest that our yoga teachers check out your emails. Those are so good, and they should hop on your email list for sure. I'm sure you get on the email list once you sign up for the checklist.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much, Danbee. I learned a lot, and I have some key takeaways and action steps, and that's what I really love to have at the end of a podcast episode. Connected yoga teachers, I hope that you do the same, that if you find just one thing and try doing that one thing, in this case with your website, maybe it's your about page, or maybe it's even your messaging somewhere else. One thing that I took away from this was this action of reviewing our website every 3 to 4 months, and not in a revamping everything kind of way. Just setting something on my calendar in this recurring to-do item, just saying like, I'm just going to pop in and look over my website, read something over, maybe add one piece of text that really reflects words that I hear yoga teachers saying, or I hear pelvic health professionals saying, because as many of you know, I wear 2 hats for businesses, and that means that I also have 2 websites. Another great action item that Danbee talked about was gathering testimonials. And I want to tell you about our system for gathering testimonials. It's actually part of our team task list. Every once in a while, we go through and just gather testimonials from the Facebook page. If we see one pop up inside of our Facebook group and it's really focused on the podcast or the resources inside of Pelvic Health Professionals, then we'll take a screenshot of those, and we save them all over on a Trello board. That's all for testimonials. You could use the Google Drive folder, or you could put them in Asana or ClickUp or some place that helps you to organize tasks. And it's really handy because we label who it's from and maybe what it's about, and we like to share those on the podcast. But over time, we're also building up that library of testimonials that we can go back and look at. Okay, what are the words that people are using when they describe the podcast? What is it offering them, and how can we put that on our website? Another key takeaway that I had from this episode is this kind of 4-step process that Danbee talked about. This asking, who are my favorite yoga students? And I know that yoga teachers sometimes get caught up and we don't want to pick favorites, but who are the yoga students that you really connect with and who you really have heard from your yoga offerings are making an impact with them? Number 2, what personal experience do you have that connects you to these people? You know, maybe some of these people are coming to your prenatal yoga classes and you found yoga when you were pregnant, or you wish you found yoga when you were pregnant. Number 3, what did this experience make you realize? And number 4, what kind of opinion or new perspective did that lead to? And I'm wondering if after hearing today's conversation, if you make changes to your website based on this. I would love to hear from you. You can share that in the comments section for this podcast so that we can actually hear from each other. Go to the connectedyogateacher.com/223. And if you have further questions about websites, bring those to our Facebook group. Head on over to theconnectedyogateacher.com and you'll see the join button right there. In that Facebook group, we have over 10,000 global yoga teachers. And so someone in that group can likely answer a question if you have a question about your particular website, whether you're building that on Wix or Squarespace or hiring someone. All of the questions that you might have, you can ask them there in that group. And every once in a while, we have a share thread. So maybe I'll try and remember this week to do a share thread where we share our websites. And that way you can have a look at other yoga teachers' websites and share your own. I want to thank everyone over here at the Connected Yoga Teacher team for making today's episode possible. And also thank you, dear listener. Without you, this podcast would not exist. So thank you so much for spending the time today to look at how you can really stand out as a yoga teacher. Keep going. Keep sticking with it. Trust me. We have an episode coming up next week where I talk about how I've fumbled along the way in my own business, and I get to talk with a really great friend about some things that we've both learned along the way building a business. And I know it's not always easy. We're here for you. And I want to know, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?